Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Track Talk. My guest is my dear friend and legendary drummer, Andy Newmark. Andy, as you know, has recorded with so many huge artists and played on so many huge tracks. It's never an easy choice to pick one, so I picked three. In this case, Anticipation by Carly Simon, which was Andy's first official, legit recording session in 1971 when he was 21 years old. Love is Alive by Gary Wright, and Nobody Told Me by John Lennon, which was a song that he recorded during the Double Fantasy sessions, and it came out 4 years later in 1984 on the Milk and Honey record. So those three songs are what we talked about. However, when it came time to put this up on YouTube, the YouTube police are out in force, and there were copyright claims on these particular tracks. And what that means basically is that I can't play the audio of these songs on YouTube. So what I might suggest is listen along to your iTunes or Spotify to Anticipation, Love is Alive, and Nobody Told Me. And you can sort of follow along with what we're talking about when we get into really breaking these tracks down. If you listen to the podcast on all the podcast platforms, you'll hear the music. But unfortunately here on YouTube, where you're watching this right now, I'm not able to play the music to these songs. I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And speaking of Andy Newmark, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Andy Newmark.
Yo, President DeChristopher.
I never get tired of that, Andy. Oh, I love that. It's good to see you. Long time no see. It's been like a week since I last saw you.
Yeah, we got to stop meeting like this.
I love it. I love it. You know, I've made a decision, Andy, that I'm gonna bug you and Jim Keltner and these important people, Steve Gadd, Ricky Murata. I'm gonna bug you guys as much as I can to document all this great music and for generations to come.
Well, I think that's probably an intelligent move, only because we'll be gone soon.
Well, I don't know about soon, but I don't know about soon. It's so good to see you. Well, I'm going to kind of surprise you. I know when we talked about doing this, I sent you an email with some ideas for songs. The problem with you, Andy, is you've recorded so many great songs, so many. And usually when I do these Track Talk shows, it's like one, maybe two songs. I'm going to try to squeeze in a few today without keeping you on here, till the middle of the night. And here's something. So I want to just set this up by saying, last week when you were kind enough to be on that show that we did to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, we talked about Ringo, and you made an excellent observation. You said Ringo was in his early 20s when he played all those songs. And you made a point of saying that. You said, he was like, 21, 22? And that I remember you saying you wouldn't have had the maturity, let's use that word, to have the music sit down the way it did and play those songs. Well, I'm about to prove you wrong. And I'd like to play a song that you recorded when you were 21. And we've talked about this before, and you've talked about it probably a million times. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. It's Anticipation, Carly Simon. It's such a great track. Your playing is so beautiful, so perfect, so mature for a 21-year-old kid with a lot of chops who had to come in and make it sit down. So can we play that song and have you talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my gut reaction to that, though, is that Anticipation, is sort of a busy-ish drum part. And I mean, I did not achieve the simplicity and the whatever that Ringo has on his records. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I know what you're trying to say, but I think if I had been presented in a fiction, if you can imagine a fictional world where me at 20, whatever age Ringo was when he did those songs, say he was 22,
Mm-hmm.
I was 14 at the time, 13, 14. In a fictional world, if someone walked into the studio and presented me with those songs that John and Paul wrote, that I'm referring to, just
Yeah.
as completely new songs that I'd never heard before. They're just two guys come in with songs, or here's the songs, let's work them up, let's record them. I would not have ever played it with the simplicity and the honesty and the intent that Ringo played those songs. I still would have, there would have been more fills. I mean, even Jim Keltner admitted the other night, he said if he had played on those songs back when he was younger, he said literally, I would have overplayed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I appreciate you, trying to, turn it all, give me a compliment, etc. But I know I would not have played those songs as straightforward as Ringo. And I think what reason those tunes and those tracks still stand up today is because he's so sort of almost invisible.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. He's so supportive. The drum parts are just purely supportive to what those great songs are that John and Paul wrote. But
Some
yeah.
folks say, well, if you notice the drums, then they're not doing their job. Somebody said that recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that if you don't notice the drums when you listen to a song, the drummer is doing his job because he's blended in so much
Yeah.
that you actually don't notice the drum track. And I know I am guilty of playing things that basically are like saying, yeah, dig me, dig this. I throw licks in that are like, my crazy, wacky shit that I dream up, right? I mean, that's ego. I mean, that is not a guy who wants to be invisible. That's somebody who's, you know, I'm I'm just I'm not capable of being as chilled as Ringo.
I dig, but I will say that really listening to so much of your stuff over the last few days, and I look at it, as a drummer, not just as a fan of yours, but as a drummer. I think you play parts that complement what's like never overplaying. And I know you would disagree with me, but I think anticipation is a great example of like you're putting like exclamation points and you're putting accents and you're putting colors into places that, we've
Yeah,
talked about those breaks that you take are just like those, I mean, should we play the song
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
let's,
Because I know some of those tunes in that list. I was thinking, Jesus, I'm not even sure what they sound like or what I played. So it was going to be awkward for me to talk about it because I don't remember exactly what I played. So I was curious if you were going to like play these songs to the audience, listeners.
yes. Yeah, we'll play them. We'll play them.
When you play it, I'm just going to excuse myself quickly to ask my partner to get me a cup of tea.
Okay, you got it. All right.
So I'll disappear for a moment, but I need a cup of tea to power through this, Mr. President.
I know it's late in the
Yes.
day.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I see it all hangs together. I'm not regretting it
Good. Okay.
and the reason that there's how would you say, we have been performing that song for months
Hmm.
in America before we got to England and recorded it.
Yeah.
So I knew every little accent and, I had time to dive deep into the different little nuances and the vocal and the song. And so you can hear I'm like really like part of the song. I mean,
Yeah.
as if you can sense this is a band that's been playing this live, right? Because it's not just kind of a straight ahead beat through the thing. There's a lot of stuff added,
Yeah.
and fills but yeah, it all hangs together. But it's because it's because we've been playing it for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's what happens. If you go and you learn a song and you're in the studio and you're learning it for the first time, I'm sure I would have played a lot of that much safer. I just wouldn't have known where all the pushes and the pulls and this and that. But, I had months and those two drum fills. I think I told you this years ago.
Yeah.
Because I learned the tune 3 or 4 months, we were playing them live in America. I was working out those two drum fills like night after night. I was thinking, well, it could be this. It's an awfully long space for a drum fill. How about this? I went through hundreds of versions of what that fill might have been and was trying them on the gigs,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because I thought those are two big giant spots for the drum to really shine and like sort of make a statement. It's like no question about it. It was just the drums for like 6 whole beats.
Yeah.
I thought, I just felt I want to do something really super cool here. I want it to grab people and be a cool drum fill. So man, I made up so many different fills and practiced them in an effort to try to find like the ultimate fill of death.
And you did,
And
Andy. That this, I mean, this both of them are unique from each other. The first one's like a safer one, obviously. You're building it, and then the second one, it's kind of like the second one to me. I still get the chills when I hear it. It's just it's so not safe, but you land it. It's like it's like you're in the Olympics doing the parallel bars, and you hit the landing perfectly.
they sounded like they were rushing. I was tapping my foot through them and I felt like my foot had to speed up. But I know with the internet, I have found a lot of old songs that are now on the internet uh, are fast. I swear they're faster than they were 50 years ago.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong,
Yeah, yeah,
but now those, I was very conscious then that those fills, uh, they push the tempo. But let me just give everybody some background. Carly said to me when I met her, which was only a few months before this in New York, she said, I love Russ Kunkel. I love Sweet Baby James, which was James Taylor's, the album that broke enormously big, even
yeah,
though it took almost a year to break. But that was out. And she said, I love this drumming. I love Russ Kunkel. This is the kind of drumming I like. And I thought, well, okay. Yeah, I had heard of James Taylor by then. The record
hmm,
was breaking through,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I hadn't really studied it. So I got a hold of it, listened, because obviously I wanted to keep the job with Carly. And I thought, well, if she loves Russ, I better channel Russ as best I can, even though I'm never going to be Russ Kunkel, but at least see where he's coming from. So I listened, and I saw Russ was playing brushes on a lot of that album, and all those big, like, sort of tom fills, the really sparse open tom fills he
yeah,
did.
yeah,
That's how I perceive them. A little reminiscent sort of Ringo, but Russell had his own thing going, but they weren't full of notes. They were really wide open, just
yes,
eighth notes with spaces in between, leaving lots of air, not digga 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 digga, but just, doom, 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 that
Mm-hmm.
California thing or whatever it
Yeah.
is. It wasn't a New York thing. We were all far too busy and, hung up on ourselves trying to be groovy and funky. But the West Coast cats like Russ, they had this much more open, laid back thing and left lots of space between the notes and, much more relaxed than the New York guys. We were all trying to be Bernard Purdy, even though he's a genius. But so I checked Russell out. And so that fill was exactly my take on, let me turn this phone off. That was my take on Russell, because those are basically dotted quarter notes. It's taken one and two and then I'm just, the notes that come after that are dotted quarter notes.
Yeah. Yep.
If the tempo is like this, 2, 3, 4, boom, 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 right? They're dotted quarter notes. That was me trying to capture Russell's vibe.
Yeah. Yep.
The next one, I got more into my own, stuff. But,
Yeah.
and interesting though, just for whatever it's worth, those are brushes.
Those are
Those are not
brushes?
drumsticks. Carly, again, because she liked Russell, and he played most of Fire and Rain with brushes.
Yes.
But that was a thing, like playing the same thing you would play with sticks, but with brushes. I'd never heard anybody do that.
Wow.
And I felt there was not enough bite in the brushes, because when you play brushes on the hi-hat, there's no point. You can't even hear the hi-hat notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And unless you really whack a cymbal really hard with a brush, just tapping it, you get nothing.
Right.
So the only thing that really comes through on the brushes is that kind of softer backbeat. But it's worth noting that whole tune, what we just heard then, is me playing with brushes and whacking the shit out of them.
Holy shit, Andy. I'll just say during the verse parts where the snare is very soft, I can hear that. And I always wondered how you dynamically got from that big tom-tom sound to playing that really soft, because I've played this song in my band, and when you get to the verse, when you play with a stick, it has a sound. It has a very different, it's a more overpowering type of sound in a soft, quiet place. So that explains to me why your snare is kind of more soft sounding during those parts. But I never knew you were playing with brushes.
Well, now, as I listened to that, I got thinking about this. And the choruses sound so much more powerful. I'm wondering if we did the choruses with drumsticks. I'm now actually wondering,
Yeah.
did I have a recollection, maybe I used to have to switch over from brushes to sticks, because that big tom-tom fill going into the chorus,
Yeah.
that big eighth note buildup, that I just was listening to that. It didn't sound like brushes. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm now wondering, did we possibly do the choruses with drumsticks, and actually playing live, there was time to put the brushes down
Right.
and pick up the sticks. And there was also time after the chorus to get rid of the drumsticks and pick up the brushes. Maybe that's what we were doing, because those choruses do sound pretty meaty for a brush.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know, like in Fire and Rain, as you said, Russ is playing with brushes, but you can hear the mics are just really open, and just, like it's the entire song he's playing with brushes, and you hear that. But the tom sound you get in Anticipation is, as you say, much meatier, much, I mean, I can play that part again if you want to hear it, or um,
I don't need to.
yeah,
It's just, now that we're really going forensic on it,
yeah, wow,
I'm thinking it through. And interestingly, I just heard on YouTube a few days ago, I don't know why it came up or how, it was Carly performing Anticipation up in Martha's Vineyard, outdoors at a marina
oh, with Rick on drums,
with Ricky.
yeah,
And I thought, oh, wow, what a nice surprise. Let me listen to this. And, obviously, Ricky and I are as close as we are, just curious how he would handle the drum part. And he did the whole tune with drumsticks.
yeah,
And I thought, man, it sounds much better. It sounded like another You're So Vain with Jim Gordon.
mm.
The sticks really, really made it sound like, top 10 AM radio hit record. I wrote Ricky. I wrote him an email. I said, man, this sounds unbelievable. You played, all he did in the verses was with the stick, he went over to the cross stick.
Hmm.
So it quieted down. He wasn't
Yeah,
playing the
yep.
snare in the verse, just the cross. But anyhow, it worked beautifully. But in the choruses, he had that big buildup. And that's what's making me think maybe I too had sticks on
Maybe
those.
and there's that press roll you play at the end too. It's very,
Oh
very
yeah, that's thank you. Thank
yeah,
you. That of course could not be with brushes.
right, right, yeah. I mean
So
that
there's the answer. There is the
yeah,
answer.
yeah.
Those are sticks in the choruses because yeah, you can't do a press roll with brushes.
Oh,
So
it just occurred to me that press roll is just as right at the end of the tune for anybody who people are familiar with the song, but it's genius. It's just that, oh yeah.
uh, Ricky played the press roll and it sounded better than mine.
I hope he's not watching this. I'll
I
never hear the end of it.
I was pissed, man. I said, damn, Ricky's press roll sounds cooler than mine.
Your press roll is damn good, damn good.
I call it the depressed roll.
Well, Andy, do you have I know you've mentioned, and you told me this story before too, that you had time to work these parts out. Do you have a recollection of how many I'm sensing that you didn't have to do too many takes when you recorded it because everybody knew the song so well.
Well, the way it went down in London with Paul Samwell Smith, who produced it, who produced all the Cat Stevens albums, but
Yeah.
he was also the bass player in the Yardbirds,
Yardbirds, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Paul Samwell Smith. Um, Carly recorded that, I think, by herself. And I have this, so much of it, we each overdubbed our parts.
Ah, okay.
Or maybe we played it live with Carly and Paul thought, well, I've got a good performance here from Carly and a live vocal, but let's tailor the drum. I just have this feeling I was doing it over and over by myself, not with the band.
Okay.
But thinking about that now, it would have been hard to keep time through those long drum breaks and then come back in with the band if there was no click or no one keeping quarter notes going through those breaks. How would I have ad-libbed those fills and come out with I'm just
Yeah.
not sure now. But I have this recollection because yeah, maybe we did the brush bits and then we'd punch in again for the bits with the sticks. I don't know that it went down live, but we had played the song so much in America that, I knew every little push and pull and, etc.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
tell it sounds like the road drummer, who's been playing the song too long and now bordering on almost overplaying.
No, no, no. By the way, our good friend Joe Vitale is watching live right now and commented more like impressed roll. I'm with Joe on that one. Yeah. Good to
Well,
see you,
thank you,
Joe.
Joe. I'll take that.
Oh man. Well, can we jump ahead to another song that was a few years later?
Sure.
I may even skip around and come back to something in between. But this is another song. This is sort of guilty pleasure time for me. I think.
Can I add one quick thing
Yeah, of course,
just to
Andy. Of course.
give everybody a bit of a giggle? When we were touring with Carly, do you know what we always called that song? Like amongst the band or on the set list, and
I have an
the
idea
name
what
of
it
the
is.
tune was Constipation.
I thought so. It's making me wait.
Yeah. Oh dear, dear, dear.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's just right for that, right? I mean,
It happens with bands on the road. Song
yeah.
titles become some really weird things.
Oh, that's great. No. Well, well, this song, I think this is some of your absolute. I mean, all these songs are examples of great playing. Your great playing, and this is some of the greatest playing. I think is alive, Gary Wright, and it's what I love about this is it's got some Andy Funky drumming to it, but it's still so pocket, so groovy.
Let me stick a comment in here just so
Yeah,
everybody
please.
can listen with this in mind. That recording you're about to play, we recorded to a drum box.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if you can hear it in the mix now, but it's in there.
Hmm.
And it was just Gary on piano and me on drums because he played all the synthesizers there were no guitars on the record.
Right.
And he had that little drum box like Sly Stone used on Fresh.
Yes.
This is like drum boxes that would say rock 1, rock 2, and if you turned it on, it would be the whole beat, the bass drum, the snare drum, the hi-hat, or it would say tango 1 or cha-cha 1, and you just got this little beat with all these little percussion things in it. So that's what we cut this to, just so no one accidentally thinks that I have perfect time, because I don't. Okay. The only reason it stands up to a click track is because it was done to a digital drum box. So just wanted to interject that I
All
had
right.
help.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. But I mean, your time is ridiculous. Let's face it. But this song was such a big song, when it came out, obviously from the Dreamweaver record, and I didn't know it was you for a long time, or at the time I didn't know it was you, and I only had really started to discover you probably a couple of years. No, I knew who you were playing with Carly, but I guess at the time I didn't realize this was you on drums. But that's neither here nor there.
The hit single from the big hit single was Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
That is Jim Keltner.
Yes. Yep.
It's the only tune Gary wanted him to play on that song. I did everything else, but he wanted Jim to do that one. And that was really the monster #1 hit single that broke the album and broke Gary.
Yeah.
Love
Well,
is Alive. It was a single. It may have been, it may have been top 10, but
I think it was. Yeah.
Dreamweaver is the tune that really broke him wide open.
Yeah. I talked to Jim about that song, and I didn't realize that David Foster is playing the piano on it. I assumed it was like Love is Alive, that Gary was playing all the keyboards on it, but Jim corrected me and said, no, it was, I think, co-written and co-produced by David Foster, and David's playing the grand piano part on it. But it's a beautiful song as well. And
Gary passed away,
Yeah. I know.
recently.
I know. Yep. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Well, let's play it. And was this recorded in London or was this recorded in New York or LA or
Los Angeles
LA? Okay. Yeah.
at Studio Lab.
Okay. So at the same, like during the same sessions where Jim did Dreamweaver, it was all part of that record. So yeah. Okay.
Same room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
1975, I think, recorded, released
yeah,
76 or sometime around there.
yes,
Again,
yeah.
a youngster, just a youngster, Andy, you were. Another
So
one.
you can hear the drum box. I yelled, but I don't think you had my mic on. And I'm
No,
sure
yeah.
people listen. You in the verses, you could hear these little percussion things.
Yeah. Yep.
I heard it for sure.
I never
I
thought
mean,
I, yeah.
it's so much fun to play along with those old drum boxes
Mm,
because they're grooving so deep just by themselves. I mean, yeah, I mean, yes, they're grooving deep, even though it has a corny vibe, but it's in time. There's so much fun to play with.
yeah.
But I heard it. Could you hear the
I could
drum
hear it
box
too.
in the
Yeah.
background?
And I never thought that, until you said that, Andy. I've heard it a gazillion times, but until you pointed it out, it never really occurred to me that that's what it is. But yeah, I thought it was a percussionist or percussion track laid on top. But
No, it
yeah.
was the old-fashioned drum box. Uh, what did they used to call them? Rhythm aces?
Yeah, something like that.
There were things like you'd see a guy in a Holiday Inn playing like a Lowry organ,
Hmm.
and he'd have the drum box, and he'd either use rock one or tango one or cha-cha. you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and they had this really unique character to them because it wasn't just like bass drum, snare drum, and hi-hat. There was all these little percussive things in there so that
yeah.
they really grooved along nice and bubbly all the time. They just bubbled along, and much easier to play with than a click track where you only have got bop, bop, and all that space in between each click. This is like bubbling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's impossible not to play along with it well. It's so easy. Now,
Well, that
another thing I
yeah.
just picked up on,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I am playing four on the bass drum
Yep.
in the choruses, which I today wouldn't do that. I hear that now and go, oh, why did you do that? That's not the way I feel that. Have I would not have wanted the bass drum on the backbeat.
Right.
1 and 3 was fine, but I can tell there. I don't know why I'm playing four on the foot, and I don't know. Maybe it was part of what was going on in 1975, where somehow that seems slightly groovy,
Hmm.
but it doesn't suit my taste today. I just don't hear the four on the foot. Anyhow, that came as a surprise now hearing that.
Yeah,
But
interesting. What about do you think maybe that had did maybe Gary have an idea of how he wanted, not that he told you to play it that way, but maybe he gave you an idea of how he wanted it to feel? Like not I mean disco was sort of a thing happening at the time and people were a little aware of that.
well, I was wondering, is my hi-hat doing the disco hi-hat?
Well, during I was going to ask you, are you playing like hand to hand 16th notes during the chorus, during that, or is it just eighth notes? I couldn't really tell, but it sounded almost like there is like an opening disco. Synth is alive.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, it could be that I played with both hands on the hi-hat, and it could be that I was inferring the disco thing,
yeah, yeah,
opening it on the and of every note. My love is alive. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I don't know. Gary could have suggested it. I mean, yeah, I mean, Gary, I mean, everybody, all the artists, I mean, everyone suggests things.
sure,
And
yeah,
and and I probably was conscious of thinking there should be a gear change between the verse and the chorus, which, as I've aged, I move away from that mentality. Sometimes gear changes do not need to take place on the drums because other instruments take care of the change in gears and atmosphere and intensity. Sometimes it's actually better if the drum doesn't try to go to a new part for the chorus from the verse or something. But I guess in my head, whatever.
I
It's hard
yeah,
to remember what happened, but whatever. I suppose I was grateful. He was just happy with whatever I was doing. He certainly would have told me if it wasn't working for him. But
yeah.
yeah, there might be 16ths on the hat and that slight disco vibe, but the bass drum on all four, it just seems odd hearing that now. It's not what my gut would play if I were playing that tune today.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say again, Andy, that I think in this song the gear change concept works so beautifully because it takes it to another place. And I guess maybe what I'm calling the chorus, you'd almost call the bridge, because when I feel like when you're playing the chorus, you go to the bell, you go to the on the bell of the ride cymbal, and you're playing like a quarter note and then a triplet, like ding, that you play throughout the coda, and those, like, it's three different things that you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah, it's
So the bit then with the hi-hat and the four on the foot, maybe maybe that's just like a B section of the verse.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe it's not even the chorus. I've lost my focus on that, but it's the middle section.
right, right.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's the lead up to the chorus. My mistake.
No, that's okay. Yeah, and again, you're playing that, nice straight funky beat, and then you go to that hi-hat thing, and then the ride cymbal part is just that's what always got me when you got to that part and you're playing those little on the bell of the ride cymbal, the little triplet thing that you're doing. It's
You
yeah,
know, that stuff on the bell of the cymbal, I still do that a lot. Play little syncopated rhythms. The
yeah.
thing is, in 1971, when I did that, I was copying Tony Williams and Tony Williams' Lifetime because
Hmm.
he would play syncopated up on the bell, but his bass drum would be behind every note on the bell.
Yeah,
So it would be like, you
yeah.
but the foot would be matching the bell.
All the beats. Yeah,
And that really it's sort of a groove breaker in a way. It's too much activity on the bottom with the bass drum. So I learned over the years, I got away from it after 71, 2, or 3 or whatever. And I didn't want to lose the syncopated bell cymbal stuff, but I thought it's that bass drum that's too disruptive to people's songs. It's too much.
hmm,
So I learned to just keep my foot on the 1 and the 3 and do the syncopation on the bell. And without all that weight of the bass drum behind the bell notes, it kind of skipped along and it was less intrusive.
yeah, yep,
And that's what I'm doing there. I am syncopating the bell, but I'm not duplicating it with my bass drum. And thank God I sort of got away from doing it because it's just not what pop records want. They just don't want all that activity on the bass drum.
yeah, yep. I
But yeah,
totally get.
I
Yep.
was still hung up on Tony Williams' Lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say with Tony, it worked perfectly because I mean, it was just like it was such a Tony thing to play those
His
polyrhythms
spoke
and
to me, man. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know anything about him when he was playing with Miles and playing the bebop and the jazz. I only knew about Tony Williams when Lifetime came out and he started playing, well, there was some sort of swing bebop in there, but there was a lot of eighth notes.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm an eighth. I come from the solar system of eighth notes. I'm not a swing guy. And he spoke, his playing spoke directly to me, but yet I know nothing about his days with Miles, and bebop never really spoke to me.
Yeah.
I'm not a bebop jazz guy. I'm an eighth note rock and roll guy. But his playing, I remember Ricky Murata and I went to see him down at Arthur's, this club in New York City. Larry Young on the organ. And then at one point, Jack Bruce from Cream was playing bass. Oh, and
Right.
John McLaughlin. John McLaughlin was on guitar.
Ooh.
Anyhow, they blew my mind and Ricky's mind. I mean, Tony was some other planetary shit, man. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
unbelievable, but I took a lot from him and it converted it into my own little funky routine. But you know, it came from him. I was like, wow, okay, okay. I dig that, and I know it came out like me in the end, but it came from him.
Yeah. No, Tony definitely influenced it. You know, you're a little older than me, but our generation, I mean, Tony was such a major force.
He
Yeah.
was a force of nature.
Yeah.
Him and Elvin, a force of nature.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only way to describe them both. Yeah.
You know, no one can imitate or no one can reproduce or duplicate what they did. It's a singular voice,
Yeah.
and no one comes, you know, that's what's beautiful when you hear someone that has this singular voice and they only know how to sound like themselves.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
exactly.
they just don't, no matter how hard they try, they just only sound like Elvin. Or Tony only sounded like Tony, period.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. Even
That's
when he
the
was,
goal.
yeah.
That should be drummer's goal, to 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 sound like yourself.
Mm. I was going to say, and Tony too, when when he would branch out and play, rock and roll, it sounded like Tony, and not in a bad way. It just sounded like him playing all
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, playing all that
Yeah.
stuff. It was,
It
yeah,
wasn't deep groove rock the way most of us rock and roll guys think of rock and roll. It wasn't the deep groove thing.
yeah,
It was his way of doing it. Um, and it might not have worked on a pop record,
right,
granted,
right.
but anyhow, he was not a pop drummer, so whatever. It was believable. Whatever it was, you could believe him. It was honest.
Yeah. Right, Andy, I got one more song I'd like to play. I know it's getting late there on the other side of the
I'm
pond,
cool.
all right,
I'm
good.
okay if you want to go longer. We don't have to, but I'm on a roll here.
All
I've
right,
got
beautiful.
caffeine thing going on now.
Beautiful. All right. All right. Well, this is a song that it's a John Lennon song.
Who? Sorry, what was that name?
John Lennon,
Huh. That name
Englishman.
rings a bell, but
Well, you might remember
was
he was
he?
in a.
Yeah, the Beatles, right? Yeah, he
That's
was a Beatle.
exactly the Beatles. The Beatles.
Hey. All right, go ahead.
All right. Well, I picked this song. There are so many great songs from Double Fantasy I mean, the whole record. There were so many big hits from that record, but this is one that I think is less talked about. It's not from that record. It's from the record that they put out afterward, after John sadly passed away, and it's called "Nobody Told Me." And I know you recorded it during those Double Fantasy sessions, right? There's
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other songs, and it's certainly a known song, I'm sure, but I think it's one that people don't talk about a lot. And I think it's just some beautiful, groovy, tasteful drumming. So can I?
Yeah.
Let's
Go
let's
ahead.
let's hit it. All right, here we
Okay.
go. And I love John's count in too. The 3, 4.
He's doing his John's doing that the triplets on the guitar,
Yeah,
but it's not it's it's what he did on the you know, that big hit record in 1964.
Yeah, yeah,
The,
yeah.
was it All My Lovin' or no?
Um,
He played this triplet on the guitar
yeah, I
part.
think it was All My Lovin'. Yeah. Um,
It was a difficult part,
yeah,
right? It really tires your wrist out. But he was doing that thing there, that up and down on the strings. And you know, one thing I'm quite proud of, I mean, with these this was 1980,
yeah,
and click tracks and drum machines had not taken over to that point. And none of these things were done with click, which, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know, it matters to me, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
sometimes I play with a click so often in the last 25 years that I wonder sometimes if I can keep steady time without a click. So I do get that insecurity, right? So I mean, this everything feels good. I mean, it just you know, the tempos were right for me and the grooves and whatever, but it all flows really nicely, and I'm just proud that it's without a click track.
Yeah.
I guess that's what
Absolutely.
I'm trying to say.
No, I'm glad you said that too, because I'm glad you're proud of it too. And I always wonder if you're gonna, listen to it and go, oh man, I wish I'd done this, or which is you knowing you, it's your tendency to go, it could have been better if I did this. But I think that's as perfect a song and a drum track as there could ever be. It
Hmm.
just works so well. You know what I mean? Just the
I had to learn that song to perform. You know, the Double Fantasy Band was brought to Liverpool for the Beatle Week in August 2022. They have a Beatle Week at the end of August.
yes, yeah, yep,
They brought the Double Fantasy players, which included me and Tony Levin and Earl Slick, to Liverpool to perform that album.
wow,
And we did it with a singer from Liverpool who did a good job of it. He
yeah,
did a good job, not trying to sound like John, but it was good. It was okay. You know,
hmm,
he was good. But I had to learn that song. I had to learn that song. There's lots of 2/4 bars in there.
hmm,
It's not all straight 4/4. There's 2/4 bars. And yeah, I was a bit excessive on crash cymbals, but that was still at a period in my life where I think anytime I played a drum fill, it was always followed by a crash cymbal. Like I rarely would play a fill and go straight back to the hat. Whereas now I'm, I think, wait a minute, where does the crash really belong? Like instead of it being just a habit, it's now I think, hey, this might sound better going from the fill right back to the hi-hat without a cymbal crash. Because let's
yeah,
face it, the groove kind of dissipates with a cymbal crash for an instant. You lose that tightness of the hi-hat, you know, right in there, woven in.
yeah, yep,
So now, I mean, it's like I don't play cymbal crashes unless like it really feels like this is a place for a cymbal crash. It's a special moment. But then I can hear I was quite excessive with cymbal crashes. Anyhow, it all hangs together, and
yeah, yeah.
I often have a problem with those kind of. It's not that's not a shuffle, but it's almost a shuffle.
Almost a shuffle. Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's quarter note. It's not it's not that. It's da and Tony on the bass is boom boom boom. So it's quarter notes, right? I can hold the time down better when I'm going but I can control the meter. When
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just doing the quarter notes, I have a little weakness where I my time might speed up just because I don't know something. If I'm just doing the quarter notes, I'm prone to a tempo fluctuation.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I held it together. I mean, this had a vibe, and it sat down. You know, I was it passed my brutal inspection.
It's beautiful. You really held it down. And can I ask two things? So the cymbal swells that come back out of the chorus, those were overdubbed?
I
Probably.
sus I suspect they were,
Yeah.
because you've got to use both hands
Right.
to swell the cymbal, and then you clamp it
Yeah.
right on the one, so you get that
Yeah. Yep.
like backward tape or some funny sound effect. I don't, I mean, if there's a backbeat going on leading up to that or under the cymbal swell, if there's a backbeat, clearly it was an overdub.
Yeah.
You can't do both. You need both hands to do that.
Right. And
It's a
I'd have to play it, but I think that is the case. But I think it fits in. And I wondered if maybe you just recorded it and they just, like you had mentioned, you told me once before that they flew in the fill and starting over, like that was just flown into that spot. So I wondered if maybe they flew in that you just recorded a swell and then or did you actually maybe listen to the track and
I
then
did.
just, yeah, and play the swell to it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's an overdub I often did when people said, want to add anything. It's I did that a lot.
Yeah.
And so that was me specifically going back into the room and doing that right at that part of the tune to fit, to
Yeah.
suck it
Yeah.
right down as it comes out of the chorus,
It's
right
beautiful.
back down into the
Yeah.
pocket for the verse. It's just a cool effect, really. So that
Ah,
was intentional, a part made for the song.
yeah. Yep. Beautiful. And
Phil, you're talking about in starting over,
yeah.
in which the drums sound almost bigger than life itself.
Right.
It's not all me. I mean, it's all me, but do you want me to explain this or not?
Sure. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yes.
In starting over, near the end of the tune stops. The time stops.
Yeah.
He just trails off with a vocal. There's no beat going on, or no one's keeping time. It just breaks down, and as if the song is ending. And then there's a drum fill that brings the tune back in. It's a triplet 12/8 groove. So it's like 3, 4, 1. I was playing both hands on the hi-hat triplet. Thump, duck, goom,
Oh,
gak,
okay.
goom, gak, goom, goom, gak, goom, gak. Right? So the fill was doom, doom, do, 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 1. That was the fill that brought the band in. So the count would have been 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
1, 3, 4, boom. They flew in 2 snare drum beats on the 3, 1, 2, papa, and again on the 4, papa. The first 2 notes of a triplet. Da-da, da-da, da-da. They just took a snare drum from somewhere else and sampled it because they didn't think the fill really had enough bite.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you can imagine if that was just what I played on the toms, well, I mean, it certainly doesn't have the presence of what they turned it into, because you get doom doom to kaka kaka
It's big.
underneath, but the toms underneath it. So
Yeah.
it sounds like, a building coming down. It's like powerful shit, but I worked out a way to do it last year when we did the tune.
Oh man.
I, I worked out a way to do it. What I did was I went buppa bass drum on the 2 last triplets. So it's buppa right?
Yeah.
And it kind of worked when we had that fill. But I practiced that fill at least 25 times a day, just the fill.
Just the fill.
With my invention on it, trying to get those snare beats in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it was snare drum and floor tom like this, unison, ba ba
Yeah, yeah, yep.
boom, 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 ba ba right? But that kick drum on, anyhow, for 5 or 6 days, I played that fill at least 25 times a day to make sure I could pull it off in my sleep. Because sometimes you when there's too much focus on something, it's like you can tense up, or I can fuck it up. I'm capable of that. So it's like I said, man, I am only going to get one chance to nail this. It's like a signature fill. People were saying to me when the record came out, oh, I love the drum fill you did, bringing the tune back in. And I had to tell everybody, I didn't play that. I played a bit of it, but that is man-made through sampling. You know,
But
people thought I had 5 arms or something. I said, no, 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 no.
I know I was one of those people that asked you about it or a long time ago, and you did explain, and I just figured that you figured out a way to do it, but it always baffled me, always mystified me when you really listen to what's happening, and that explains it. But
Yeah, I mean, I think what they did is super cool. I mean, I never would have dreamed that up, to fly in snare beat, ba, the first 2 notes of each triplet,
yeah,
heavy rim shot, ba ba. I mean, it's got attitude. It's
yeah,
got serious attitude.
yeah,
To go 1, 2, it's got a real fuck you thing going on.
yeah, yeah. Back in, yeah. Back to Nobody Told Me. Um, there's a part at the end of, I guess it's the at the end of each verse as it goes into the chorus. It sounds like you're off the hi-hat and just playing just snare beats. Am I hearing that correctly, or are you just playing the hat really lightly? In other words, that part where just before you, yeah,
do 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 do. There's
yeah,
that fill again.
yeah,
There's the fill right there that I was just talking about. Papa
yeah, yeah. That's it.
Um, yeah, I think maybe the hi-hat came out.
Yeah, and you're just playing like a solid, maybe with two hands, maybe, or maybe just one. But it sounds like it. What I think is great about it, Andy, is the emptiness of not hearing that hi hat. Again, creates another kind of feeling, and then when the hi hat comes back during the chorus,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's no hi-hat. That we just stumbled upon something, just a good accident, these little
yeah,
things come to you. And I suppose, if you're playing with John Lennon, you're always thinking about what would Ringo do,
mm.
because, that he always said to me, Ringo was his favorite drummer. And several times he said, man, just play like Ringo and I'll be happy.
That's. I remember you
So
telling me that. Yeah, that's great. That's
I
great.
guess I was trying to channel Ringo, and that would be sort of a Ringo-esque thing, to just stop and just play the foot and the snare drum.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely, yeah, I did think a lot about Ringo throughout all of this, because he made a point of telling me,
hmm
he said, play like Ringo. He's my favorite drummer.
and so with that, so I think you're answering the question I'm going to ask. John really kind of gave you free reign to come up with your parts. He didn't say, I want this kind of thing in this song. He just, you came in and got to, I'm sure he told you if he
Well,
didn't like something, but
we would hear him play the song once or twice. Then we'd all go to our instruments, as we all did back then. And then he would perform it and sing it, and we'd be playing along. And we'd just be making stuff up
mhm.
as we go. But we'd get through a take and he'd say, okay, right, drums. Andy, I like the verse. I like that other little bit. He said, but the chorus, I don't want to feel that busy. He said, no, I don't want that bass drum pattern in the chorus.
Mm.
Give me, he could walk through my drum part and go like that, don't like that. Let's work something out. And he could do that with Tony Levin on bass. He did it with Hugh McCracken and Earl Slick on guitar.
Hmm.
Um, he would edit our parts. He could always say, "Hey, that bit's great. You got to change that. We got to find something else." So he was very articulate in giving us direction, which I loved,
Yeah. Yep.
instead of just wondering, is the artist happy or not? It's if an artist can articulate what they want and what they don't want, that's fantastic to get that direction
Yeah.
early on, because you might get a take in a couple of takes and you've got it, instead of somebody finally piping up after 10 or 12 takes. Actually, I don't like that bit so much, Andy. I think we need to change it. Well, he would tell you instantly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
He
it. Yeah.
knew,
Great.
and he loved simplicity. He didn't like any fancy schmancy, tricky drummy bullshit.
Mm.
He wanted it to be straightforward, on the nose, to the point, honest, but forget all that drummy, technical, cutesy bullshit. He hated all that. He wanted straight ahead groove. So I I kept it simple because I didn't want to be the one to fuck up an early take
Mm.
by
Hmm.
by trying something a little on the outside. I was like, I put all that stuff away and said, I'm going to behave myself here. I am not going to be the one to ruin a take. And I kept it really simple to make sure I wasn't to blame for a take breaking down, because he wanted it on the second or third take. He
Yeah.
didn't want to play on and on and on. After 6 or 7 takes, he'd say, all right, we'll come back to this later. I can't do it, because he was singing, and the vocals he was singing, they're on the album.
Man.
They were live vocals. His part, he played really well. I mean, he
Yeah.
had enough years of stage experience. When he played his guitar part, it was locked. When he sang, it was locked into the John Lennon thing that he does,
Man.
and it was complete. It was a complete persona. His guitar part and his voice, it was the performance. He wanted and kept all those stuff on the record are those early takes with his vocals. I mean, he might have patched a note here or there, but he wasn't fucking around. I mean, he wanted a performance. He was performing.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
going for it. And actually, when you have somebody, that can play rhythm guitar like that and really put a vibe on something, and his vocals are completely, well, it's just him. He
Yeah.
only knows how to sound like him. But when you play along with an artist that is that grounded and has their whole persona, such a handle on who they are, and they can do their thing, it really tells you what to play. You don't have to imagine very much. When he sat and played those songs to us, it was so obvious what 99% of the drum part was going to be.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
straightforward. He had it all going on between his rhythm part and his vocal, and they were good songs. Well, I think good songs. A rhythm section player does not have to overplay to compensate for a weak song. When you're accompanying a really good song, you need to just keep out of the way, because the song really can stand up. And he did. I mean, his thing was completely formed and evolved. You didn't need to dream up any fancy shit on any instrument to try to make these tracks happen.
Yeah.
You just had to behave yourself and take your guidance from him. It all emanated from him.
That's beautiful. Yeah. But I'll just say that I think having you and Huey McCracken and Earl Slick and Tony Levin, like I understand what you're saying, Andy, and I think that you were able to add something beyond just keeping a beat. You know what I mean? You had at that point 10 years of recording experience where you could tastefully add, a cymbal swell in a spot where it would be really hip to do that. And, the idea of dropping the hi-hat in a certain spot, it's like all those things you maintain of staying out of the way, but also contributing something to making it, a great solid
Yeah.
track.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, there's a little, an Andy thing, which, it's, I mean, I'm just grateful I got away with what I got away with, because as I said, I did not want to, he didn't want the drums to be all full of personality and grooviness and cool lick. He didn't want, he's a meat and potatoes guy.
Yeah.
He's a rhythm and blues guy. Ringo is a groove pocket drummer.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what he wanted. So yeah, I proceeded very carefully, and I guess, yeah, occasionally I managed to get a little lick in here or there.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that song that we just played, Nobody Told Me, that was released in 1984. So it's even though it was recorded in 1980, but just even the fact that it's 40 years old, that we were listening to it on the radio 40 years ago is just incredible. And my point being, it still holds up today. I mean, and it just sounds every bit as great as it did back then. That, the instruments don't sound dated. It's not like like some of the 80s music that we indulge ourselves in, that has that dated sound to it. So bravo, and, to John and all you guys for bringing it.
Well, he was also into had come out of the Beatles and then spent those years doing quite a bit of kind of outside music.
Yeah.
Not down the middle, mainstream, great pop tunes. And it seemed like on this record, he'd had enough of experimentation and he sort of was writing straight ahead tunes, kind of reminiscent maybe of how he would have written in the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
The songs stood up
Yeah. Yep.
really, really well. I mean, having said that, there are tunes during his solo career before Double Fantasy that are great tunes, like, Imagine, for one.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but it seemed on this album like he was back to doing, I don't know, what we knew him for.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of the production and the background vocals, Woman, was Beatlesque.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I remember when the record came out, Andy, I thought the same thing. It was so reminiscent of just just kind of, I hate to say simple, but just great pop tunes, great tunes, great melodies, great vocals, great playing. Yeah.
He was in a good space. I never knew him before. He was so upbeat and so full of energy and so kind of positive and having such a great time just playing and being stupid and carrying on with all his antics in the studio. He was unstoppable, really, but he was in a very, very positive frame of mind. And I thought, well, I'm glad I met him now.
Yeah.
Because he's really on form.
Yeah. And I know we talked about this too a while ago, and there was talk of him taking a band out. I mean, there'd been sort of ideas put forth that maybe, this record was so big and that he had this kind of renewed feeling of wanting to make music again. It would have been really just amazing to take that band out and
he asked us in the studio after a few weeks. He said, look, I'm thinking about doing some live shows. That I don't want to go and do a concert tour, but a couple of select shows in different cities, and we'll broadcast it into the cinemas.
Wow.
That was when that started happening,
Yeah. Yep.
where, they would televise a concert into cinemas, and you'd go into a movie theater and see a concert in Tokyo or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I want to do some shows. He says, you guys up for that? Of course not. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Oh, please. Come on, man. I'm too old to go on the road. No, it was like, we're like, yes, I'm totally up for that. No problem. No problem. Yeah, I'm ready. So it seemed like he wanted to perform live, but, that never came about.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss, Andy, all these years later, and all of our loss.
Yeah, everybody. Those of you out there that I know, thanks for tuning in. And John, as usual, you do all this stuff really good. I get a kick out of it. And hope I delivered the goods, man.
You absolutely did. Without a doubt, you are the returning champion. I so appreciate it.
Hey, look, I'm voting for you in November, Mr. President. Okay? You the man. You the man.
All right.
All right.
Well, hang tight, Andy. 1 second. I'll end the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody. A big hand for my pal, the legendary Andy Newmark. All right, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for watching, everybody. All right, well, that's my show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. And the podcast is available on all the podcast platforms, so download it. And remember, no drummers are ever harmed on Live from My Drum Room or TrackTalk. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. All right. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again real soon. See ya.